Welcome to Lip Service for Contractors. Here you'll learn what moves the needle in your business. With your hosts, Brigham, the deep thinker, Josh, the $100 million contractor, Zach, the confused millennial, Laura, the foreigner. Lip service. It's not about dictatorship. It's about leadership. It's not about duplication. It's about innovation. It's not about stuff. It's about your people. Strap in and get ready for some lip service.
Welcome to another episode of Lip Service for Contractors. My name is Zach Garside. I'm the Confused Millennial, and I'm going to be introducing you to today's topic. We will be talking about the 4 types of people who work in your company and how to customize your leadership approach to get the most out of them, and why one of them may not even be worth having at all. All that's coming up in 60 seconds.
Power Selling Pros is the customer service coaching company for contractors. Their one-on-one coaching for CSRs helps contractors book at least 85% of their calls and wow more customers. And their group training for technicians helps you create a better buying experience in the home and close more sales. Visit powersellingpros.com to learn more about how you can make more money with their coaching programs.
Chances are you love what you're hearing on Lip Service for Contractors. And if you want to go deeper, have an actionable playbook, or just want to learn from some of the most successful and profitable contractors in the industry, check out Clover Marketing from Josh and Laura. They give away free, amazing information, tools, SOPs, scripts, and processes that help their family business grow to over 140 million. And those same tools have helped other contractors in the industry blow up their business and grow an average of 20% every single year. Check out growwithclover.com/free gifts. They update the free gift section all the time, so make sure you keep coming back.
Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for listening to Lip Service for Contractors. As a reminder, before we get into the good stuff, like us on Facebook, subscribe to the podcast on Apple or Spotify or wherever you find your high-quality audio content. Find us on social media, Lip Service for Contractors, Power Selling Pros, Grow with Clover, Clover Marketing. We're out there, and your feeds will be blessed by rich content if you follow along on all the social channels. All right, folks, let's talk about the 4 types of people that work in your company.
Let's do it. Well, Zach, you should kick it off because you initiated this idea, and I think it's solid. But introduce the 4 types, and then let's dive into each.
Okay, I'll give a brief rundown. I think there's probably a little bit of this Josh could add a little more color to, but I'll give an overview.
Go ahead.
There are 4 types of people that work in every company. And as I describe these 4 types, I imagine people who are listening will be able to put a face from their business to each group. The first group is your A players. These are the people who are in the game. They show up every day and they put in a good day's work because they want to, because they care. They believe in what you're doing, and you want everyone to be like your A players. But everyone is not like your A players, which leads us to group number 2, which is the fence sitters. They're sometimes all in. They're sometimes very engaged, and you love when you see it. But other times, you just can't quite figure out why they're not all the way in the game, why they're not engaged. But they're there, and you want them still. You want them to become A players. The third group is your rewards-driven people. They just want the paycheck. They are there because they can get paid. Sometimes they can get paid a lot. And so they show up and they work hard, but they're not necessarily helping your culture. They're not necessarily the kind of people you want to see lead the business into the future. Salespeople sometimes call them lone wolves because they do their own thing, but you can't get rid of them because they still put out a lot of good work. That's group number 3. And then group number 4 is people you just cannot motivate.
Effectively, at least.
Effectively. Yeah. I talked to a business owner this morning, and he was lamenting one of his CSRs who he recently hired like a month ago. And he said he just cannot get her motivated. She's not a team player. And so he was thinking about investing in training for her.
Okay.
No.
And I was like,
No.
dude, if you're a month in and you think training is going to solve the problem, I think you might have made a bad hire. But he said, dude, I can't go back and go through that again. It took me months to find someone in the first place who was even willing to come work.
I would make the argument like you should fire fast. Like if it's not good fit, like don't train your way out of a bad personality fit. It's not going to win. And if the excuse is like, well, it took me 2 months to get a CSR, it's like, how the hell were you looking for a CS? A CSR is not that hard to find. If it takes you more than a week to find a qualified CSR, you're doing recruiting poorly. The solution is not to keep poor people, it's to recruit more effectively.
And I think maybe he hasn't had to endure the hardship of what one toxic person can do to a culture. Like he is going to end up wasting so much more time, money, and effort by keeping this person, because this person's going to suck the bloody life out of everyone else around them. I hope that guy gets rid of that gal.
Yeah. Did he?
Yeah, like,
I'll tell anonymous, obviously, right? But did he get rid of her?
Well, we talked today. It was interested in our training today.
That was hours ago. She should be gone.
There is some phrases that have been us around for so long, and they do hold a lot of wisdom and truth, like hire slow, fire fast. And he may have been a month finding her, but crap, he needs to get rid of her. And I would, if you hold this doubt in your stomach about a person, why are you trying to justify keeping them? You got to get rid of them.
I remember.
I'll tell you why.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I'll tell you why. The reason why is because you're desperate. You're growing like crazy. It's hard to find people. I have no idea why, but it's hard to find good people, and you need to fill spots. You need to fill those spots, and you need to get a warm-blooded body to where they need to be, right? Otherwise, it's you and it's your wife and it's your son, right? You're going to send your son. What are you going to do? Right? What are you going to do?
A person who I'm of the opinion, if a person is that much of a negative energy, they'll hurt you more than help you.
100%.
Certainly. But, and all I'm saying is, this is why we do these things. We do these things.
I don't think we're justifying it. He's just saying this is what leads to it. This is how.
No, yeah, and here's the thing: like we could go back and forth on this. I mean, you can make excuses for bad decisions, right? But we're all aware it's a bad decision to have the wrong person in the business, and it's really easy to say, "Hey, like I did this because I'm desperate." But working out from a place of desperation is just poor business. Like finding great people is hard. Finding good people is easy. Now, a lot of people will hear that and they'll like roll their eyes or whatever. It's like, well, it's only easy if you know how to do it or what you're doing, right? If you're doing the same thing you did 5 years ago, then yeah, you're probably having a lot of trouble recruiting because everybody else stepped up the recruiting and you didn't. So go get some help. Go take a course for recruiting. We have a recruiting and retention course. Go talk to other people about recruiting and retention. There are people, technicians, it's a skilled labor. It's hard to get, but still not a problem if you know what you're doing, right? Comfort consultants, hard to get, super skilled, way less of them, hard to get, but very easy to get if you know what you're doing. CSRs, it's a personality hire, not super skilled, not hard to find. You're just not going to convince me of that. And if your excuse is like, well, I hired them because I'm desperate, it's like, how are you recruiting? Like, if you just put an ad up on Indeed that's not even a good ad, yeah, I would expect you not to get many applicants and not to find the right person. But you need to have more than that.
He was like a child in a classroom. He's raising his hand. You got to give him this time to speak.
Staying ahead of it is a really good idea. And what I mean by that is that if you're constantly recruiting, interviewing, right? You have specific people that's what they do. They interview. If you do that, you'll have a list of people so that when an opening does come up, you can call those people back. And I realize that some of them will not be available. Some of those individuals will have another job. Some will have another job and not like that job. And if you're good enough and you're spectacular enough and everybody's talking about you, right, that you're an amazing place to work, they might even leave that job and come work with you. It's just, it's just the way it is. But if something that we've been doing, or at least I've seen my team do, is they have a list, they keep a list, and there's people who did really good in the interviewing process, but there was somebody better at the time. But 6 months later, something comes up, crazy thing. They call that same group of people back that interviewed extremely well and give them another shot at it. If the company is good enough, I promise you, people will wait for you. They'll wait for you and they'll interview again and again, and they'll try to get in, especially if they know the culture's good and they believe in your content and what you teach, how you teach it. They'll wait and they'll do whatever they got to do to get on board. And even those who are on board but not totally catching on like the other studios. Sometimes you want to wait for like the superstar every time. But there are going to be some times where they're great, right? Josh was saying, hire the good people. There's a ton of good people out there. Well, even the good people, if they're humble and meek enough, you can see how they go in those first 90 days, and they can go from good to great very, very quickly with the right training and the
System.
yeah, meek, humble.
Great.
Meek and humble are interpreted and perceived very differently, in my opinion. Humble is a good quality. Meek is someone who's weak, typically.
Interesting.
That's exactly my interpretation.
That's the difference between, we got 2 religious people on this podcast and 2 non. Meek is a positive thing.
Meek,
Yeah, meek is not weak.
inherit the earth.
Meek, that is fascinating, because I do think, Josh, you hold the same opinion of.
Oh yeah, meek is not a positive thing.
Meek is not a positive thing to me.
Yeah. So from a Christian standpoint, the meek will inherit the earth. So it's a good thing.
Like meek and timid are synonyms.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. Anyway, totally off topic.
Yeah.
No, this is a question that I want to pose to you guys. So you've heard the phrase that if in life you have an inability to attract good people, like friendships, relationships, team members, period, you have the inability to hold good relationships or attract good relationships. Sometimes if it's a consistent pattern, you need to look closer to home. It's not that there's no talent. It's not that there's no good guys. It's not that there's no good girls. It's not that there's no, the problem could be you. Do you think when does
it could be them, it could be the company, it could be the setup, it could be the way they're recruiting. There's a lot of factors into it. I'm not going to say it's the owner. It can be the owner or the person hiring, but I mean,
I agree. So that's something I want to put out to you. When perhaps there's more than just recruiting and retention strategies. It's how is your brand perceived from the outside? How are you as a leader? And maybe some self-reflection is necessary.
For sure.
I don't know. I'm just asking you guys, what do you think how do you think that weighs into people's inability to keep and get good people?
Of course it does. Ultimately people come for money and opportunity, but they stay because of relationships. If you're not getting applicants, I would say most of the time it's not the owner that's the issue. It can be what people perceive as the business, but none of our businesses are so well known from a CSR standpoint. Maybe from a tech standpoint, it is, right? Hey, it's a terrible place. Where techs are real close knit. They talk to each other. Everybody knows everybody to a point. But a CSR, if you can't get CSRs, it's generally not a company issue. It's generally not an ownership issue. It's probably a recruiting issue. Now, if you're getting a bunch of applicants, but no one wants to jump on, that's a different story, right?
Yeah. It's almost go ahead, sir.
Or even I'm getting a bunch of applicants, but no one's a perfect fit. Maybe your scorecard for that position is just a little extreme, or you're looking for something that's too ideal, or there's a lot of factors that go in that. All of this is somewhat off the topic of what Zach wanted to talk about.
Yeah. Go ahead. Okay, so we've talked about super engaged folk, getting them, but we haven't spoke about what do you do with each individual and when to let a person okay, so we said people you should just let go. Then the awards driven people, why keep them? Why don't? What do you do to make sure that they don't make the culture toxic?
I think rewards given people now there's different types of businesses. So in Brigham's business or in our business Clover, not necessarily an HVAC or plumbing a Parker or whatever, right? It's different, but for most home service businesses, I think rewards driven people are actually a necessity. Now they're not the ideal employee type, right? They're just not. They could be a pain in the butt. They could be difficult. They could push back on things. But they're sales driven most of the time. And we all need that piece in that. Doesn't mean you promote to management. Doesn't mean you give a lot of power, but we all know that salesman that does $7 million or $5 million a year, that dude is a lone wolf, almost guaranteed.
Oh yeah.
He uses our systems. Yeah, for sure. He uses the tools we give him, but he's a pain.
Yeah.
But he has $7 million in sales. I live with it, right? So you need rewards driven people, but only if they're delivering something worthy of the rewards. You know what I mean? If that's $1 million salespeople, and that might be controversial to some people, like if you're $1 million salesperson and you're driven by rewards only, like you're not effectively motivated because you're only doing $1 million in sales.
That's right. I'm 100% with you. I think if you have rewards driven people that produce and they feed the family, right? They bring in amazing results. I'd also have one caveat though, and they don't hurt your culture.
Yeah.
Fair. Yes.
Then you hang on to those people, right? They're not going to be the leader of the company, but they don't want to be the leader of the company. They're like,
No,
dude,
they don't.
I'm perfectly content doing what I'm doing. I think everybody has to decide what they'll do though when they have somebody who is a very high performer and also hurts the culture though. Like they gossip, they talk crap about the owner behind his back. They're always like, dude, screw this. This place sucks, but whatever, man. I'm making $200K this year. That's a lot harder because yes, they produce, but do you really want your people who are again on the fence? They don't produce that much. You want them thinking that way? Do you want?
I'd argue. I think in line with Brigham on this. I think they got to go. If they hurt the culture and they then start to influence the engaged folk, or the people who are on the fence and they're not necessarily super engaged, but they're not.
I mean, so
tough.
So here's what I would say. Like, this is the difference between theory and real world, right?
Right.
If you got a $7 million salesman, but he's a pain in the ass, you just silo him. Like, you just don't allow him to talk to people that much. And you live with it, and it sucks. But you know what? He did $7 million in sales. I don't care who you are. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, nah, screw that guy and fire him. Like,
Yeah, I know. I get you.
no, you're not. Like, you just silo him as
That's true because you're hedging against it, right? By siloing him, by putting him in that position. I don't think the first instinct if somebody is killing your culture is fire. It's okay.
it can be, but not if they're an ultra high producer.
Right. What do we need to do so that we can keep this guy and nurture the rest of the team? Because we obviously got to do something about that. And I mean, follow him and
I mean, as weird as it sounds, like I could build $4 or $5 million salesmen over and over and over and over again, no problem. Like we have the systems in place, we know exactly how to do that with companies across the United States, right? $7 million, that's just a special individual, and like you know what I mean, it is what it is. Like I'm helping him get to that, right? But like 7, 8, 9, there's people who do 10, right? Which is insane. Those are different animals. And all those people, everyone I know that does 7 million or more, and I know a couple dozen of them, they're all nightmares. And like, no one wants to let them go. Yeah, he's like,
you know what I think of? I don't know why this came to my brain, but what's 30 Rock? Tracy Morgan. I don't know why that came to my brain. Like he's a nightmare, but like if anybody watches 30 Rock, it's like
the show. Yeah,
he's so pivotal, but he's a nightmare.
What?
Yeah, like you can't get rid of him. But that's fascinating.
What is on your mind, Brigham?
Brigham's muted himself.
Forgive me. So I guess the biggest thought is, well, I'm comparing all of your comments to personal situations. And I've had personal situations. I've had situations where people have openly spoken ill of me. And I'm the type of person that wants to learn and change and grow. I want to figure out, okay, where did that come from? What does it mean? Is there truth there? So I tend to address it. And what's interesting is I've been able to come to terms with a lot of that feedback that comes, but there's been situations where it seems like the individuals feed off of the way I approach it. In other words, the attention they get when they say it, the attention they get from me when they say it. And when it happens, for a third time or a fourth time, and I can see that they're feeding off it, I realize, wow, I'm wasting my time here. There really isn't a lot of truth to what they're saying, A, and B, gosh, what a total waste of time, and especially in hindsight, right? Because when you look back on the time that you have spent on that one group that Zach talks about, the ones that just will not be engaged, no matter what you do, no matter what you say, no matter how many times you talk to them. I realized in hindsight that that wasn't the best investment of my time. So that's what's going on in my brain. It's just processing all of your comments and realizing, oh yeah, I can relate to that. Oh yeah, I can relate to this too. Over and over and over again. So
Are you of the same opinion of the guys that if he is like, really feeding the family at such an elite level that you just got to figure out a way to silo him?
Yeah. That's really.
No, I'm saying
like,
is Brigham in agreement?
Now, if they're openly talking bad about the owners, like that's like a different level of bad culture. Like this, sometimes even if they're a total badass, but like, how bad does this person have to be for that to happen? That really shouldn't happen if you're set up properly. Like, I'm sure that happened to you when you first started Brigham. That doesn't happen anymore.
Oh, it still happens every now and then, and that's okay. And I can learn from it. I appreciate
feedback. I don't want them talking shit to me.
Sure,
certainly. Talk directly to me, right?
Certainly.
And that's maybe it shouldn't happen.
And it is a culture thing. It certainly is a culture thing. It is definitely the way I lead. When somebody says something poorly about me, the first thing I'm going to do is look in the mirror and go, is there truth here? Period. Because I know that what stunts our company's growth more than anything is me. And that's just the way it is. Now, I have found that when I've learned and when I have grown and when I have changed, the company has begun to grow again. And I can name example after example after example. And that's just me realizing where I need to be as a leader in order for my company to grow. However, there are some times where people will take advantage of that temperament of mine.
Agreed.
And it's happened before to me. And there have been times where I should have, as opposed to looking within, say, hey, there's nothing there, right? There's no basis for that. And see if we can't get them to realize their mistake, maybe even apologize, ask for a do-over. Okay. Do-overs are absolutely a part of our culture. I ask for do-overs all the time. And that's just who we are. But if something is just ridiculous, if I have a weakness, that's the one weakness I got to work on. And knowing when to see if I can learn from that feedback or actually say, hey, that's not called for. You need to check yourself. So if there's anything I need to work on, it's probably that.
Yeah. I think part of the conversation, because this is all good conversation, but we're steering on and off topic a little bit, right? If we're talking about people that are rewards driven, like, should you have these people on your team? Yes or no? Like, should you spend a lot of time and effort on these people? Yes or no? I would make the argument. It really depends on how much they're producing, and their consistency of production, right? If they only deliver when we're running this really special thing that we can't do all year, then that's not the right team member either. Like, it's time to look for somebody else. Or we just haven't found the right way of motivating them. Like, if you're going to have those team members that are rewards driven, you better have a good idea what rewards drive them. And you better keep dangling that carrot in front of them, sometimes a stick behind them, all the time. Because you can't have team members that do great 1 month and then do terrible the next month. There's just not a safe way to build your business. And it's terribly frustrating and difficult. So I think you have to do a real assessment. Like, number one, is this person producing enough where they're worth the headaches? Number two, have I found a way to keep dangling carrots effectively with them? Is it we need to try something else? Or is this person just not going to be consistent? There are people who, like, they have a sales goals in their mind for the year and they hit in, August, all of a sudden their sales drop off. Or like more exemplary, a CSR. I know a CSR had a conversation yesterday with this call center manager. They have a CSR who like had a job where she made a chunk of money, right? And they rolled out like how much maintenance agreements she would need to sell to hit that every single month. And she hits it by like the 7th day of the month, 7th, 8th, 9th day of the month, right? And she sells like 7, 8 maintenance agreements a day for those first 7 or 8 days. And all of a sudden it just drops, right? She sells like 4 the rest of the month. And they're like, I don't understand what she's doing. I'm like, well, it's because you're not motivating her. Like, that's not, we need to find either another carrot, or maybe this person just decided that's enough, I'm good. And if that's the type of motivation that drives them, then like maybe they're not a good fit. You want to first start by like really trying to find better ways to motivate. But like, I think that's important. If you can't consistently motivate them, probably not a good fit either. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think it's fair.
No. Zach, this was your topic. Give me the feedback.
So I think the main thing that I have an opinion on this is I think it's not a tragedy. Tragedy is a strong word, but it's sad to see when companies, okay, they recognize which employees they have in each of these groups, right? They kind of like have these mental buckets, they put them in, and then they spend too much time on the wrong group because your toxic employees and your rewards-based employees, those tend to be the ones that ownership and management stress and sweat and talk and think about way more than they should.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying those people don't deserve attention, but you've got this holy grail, group number 2, the fence sitters, people who you hardly think about because they do good work most of the time, but there's another level of potential there that's not being tapped into, and quite frankly, never will unless they get attention as well. And they largely get overlooked. We recognize the people at the top, we congratulate them. Everybody knows how wonderful they are. And then we spend all this time like trying to counsel and improve the rewards driven people and the toxic people when there's still these other, just kind of like, you know, they don't make a lot of noise. They're maybe a little more timid, but they still do really good. And if you could just help those people tap into that next level of great work, it would change your business forever. And in my opinion, that's the ultimate motivation for rewards driven people. It's to see that group be rewarded and recognized and move on, right? Grow. Because then the rewards driven people are seeing that and going, whoa, like I need to really step up and join the cause here, or I'm going to get left behind. And that ultimately is, I think, in my opinion, right? I'm probably the least experienced person here when it comes to manage. I literally am the least experienced person here when it comes to owning and managing and leading a company. But I have no doubt that the primary motivation for a rewards-driven person or a toxic person even to come out of that and rise up and consistently get better and contribute to the company is not for you to keep throwing a stick in front of them or finding some new incentive. It's to get the people who are above them already to bring them along with them, to make them feel like they're part of the group.
So what Zach is describing here is very much in tune with our culture. And it's why I am so excited about it. Because for me, it was an aha moment. Why? I spend way too much time. I have been guilty of spending way too much time in the past with those who are focused on rewards and are there for a paycheck, not necessarily drinking the Kool-Aid. Okay. So in our organization, you're not going to last long if you're not drinking the Kool-Aid. It's just the way it is. We all are very much into learning, changing, growing. And lastly, here's the thing. When it comes to rewards, we've got to define what that is, because if it's like commission, sweet. I'm cool with the fact that you are motivated by a higher commission and getting paid more money. I'm cool with that. However, at least for our culture at Power Selling Pros, if the reward is you being the spotlight as opposed to the content, okay, from a cultural standpoint, I have a problem with that. Okay, I have a problem with that because that's not who we are. Not No one person in this organization is the reason why we're successful. It is the content itself that is the reason for our success. Now, it is extremely important for our most tenured employees to have that understanding. It's not about me. Okay. And it's not about you. It's about what we're doing for contractors day in and day out. It's what we're doing to help people grow. And as they grow, we grow. And we believe that our content is what does that, not us. So when somebody wants to be rewarded, meaning they need that dopamine hit from somebody saying, oh my gosh, you're so amazing. You're so incredible. You're the most, you know what?
Thank you, Brigham.
We don't want you.
Never mind. Oh, I thought you were done. Okay, never mind.
Now he doesn't. He doesn't want you.
I think a good example, because I think this, I think a lot of people understand this in theory, but let me explain this, something that like everyone truly understands. Your techs. If you have 20 technicians, and I'm just using 20 as an example, it could be 100, it could be 10, it could be whatever. It makes no difference. It could be 5, right? There's people at the top, there's people in the middle, and there's people at the bottom. People at the top are your highest producers. You can drive these people, and you should drive these people, but driving the people at the top, you can only drive them so much further, right? Because they're at the top of the mountain. There's no one to push them, right? The people at the bottom has the biggest potential for growth, but they're at the bottom for a reason. They have some mentality issue. They have some whatever. Maybe you can move some people in the bottom, from the bottom to the middle, and maybe eventually to the top, but it's few and far between. Most of those people you'll end up replacing. Doesn't mean you shouldn't spend time at the bottom, but it shouldn't be your focus. Your focus should always be the people in the middle. Because if you can get those technicians in the middle to be at the top, it pushes your top guy too. And it makes it easier to push out your bottom guy. So like the middle, the people that are bought in, but just short of being really successful. Those where you have the biggest opportunity, it's the least amount of effort to make the most improvement. Mm-hmm. Whereas your low guys, that's where most people tend to focus. Like, this guy's not doing shit. Like, let's just spend all of our time and effort on this shitty tech. Right. And let's turn him around from, he's a 5. We need to get him to a 90. There's a lot of work to be done in that. Mm-hmm. And you're probably better off just replacing him. That's harsh, but like you could spend years getting him to 40 and he's still at the bottom.
Agreed.
And if you're at the bottom, I once, Paul does this speech, and I've had this conversation with techs too. It's like, I've had people, if you're at the bottom, like you may not have a job here. Like, just being honest, like don't be at the bottom. If you're consistently at the bottom, you may not have a job. I've had technicians say to me like, well, what happens if everybody else, if I improve 20%, but everybody else improves 20%, I'm still at the bottom. It's like, yeah. And you don't want to be at the bottom because you might not have a job here.
Okay. So, and I appreciate what you're saying. And as a general rule, I totally agree with it. However, there might be some situations where, for example, let's say that there's a plumber that is, according to, this is an example, I'm trying to sugarcoat it. The owner says, Brigham, we got a problem. I've got a plumber who is dumb as a box of rocks, and this is me sugarcoating it. Okay. And he just won't catch on. And, I don't think he ever will catch on. I feel like the writing's on the wall, and I just got to let him go. And I said, okay, cool. Let me ask you a question. Why haven't you let him go already? How long have you been holding on to it like this? He's all several months. I'm like, okay, but why? Why are you holding on to him? There's something else going on. Well, everybody likes him. Okay. Tell me more about that. What about him does everybody like? Well, he's kind of like a company mascot. I'm like, okay, tell me more about that. Why is he a company mascot? Because everybody sticks up for him. Everybody appreciates him. Everybody knows that he means well. They're happy when they see him. He just comes with so much energy and so much positivity. So even though he may not be the smartest, smartest guy around, he's very genuine and very sincere, and it helps the culture and the energy of the office. And so I said, okay, so what if the answer isn't whether I let him go or I don't let him go? What if there's an option C or an option D here? Why do we have two loose options? We don't. We have many options. So the question now with this is, what can he do? What other jobs can he have? And at the end of our conversation, he decided, you know what? He can help with the warehouse. And there's specific things he can do to help load up the trucks and so on and so forth. And he could bring that energy to every one of those technicians while he's helping them load their trucks and offload their trucks. And he thought it was the greatest idea ever. But it was a whole lot better than, hey, let's either get him to do a job that he just simply cannot do, or fire him.
Yeah. And I know Zach wanted to hop in, but to be clear, when I say pushing out, that's exactly what you just described. You pushed him out to a different position. It doesn't mean you have to fire everyone, right? And you can always keep in mind, like people will push back. It's like, I was the worst tech, now I'm the best tech. It's like, there are exceptions to every rule. We build rules for the 99%, not the 1%.
Mm-hmm.
So like, don't get hung up on individual situations, right? And to be clear, that guy, no longer a plumber. You pushed him out because he wasn't any good, and that's the right move.
A person who has an amazingly positive impact on a culture, finding a spot for them is
He has value. Yeah, it's a ton of value.
Like his personality alone, is a justifiable reason to find him a job that's within his capabilities.
Well said. Well said. By the way, I wasn't raising my hand to say something. I was saying 5 minutes.
Okay, fair enough.
Now we're on 2.5.
Let's do it before we go. So, top people, your A players, how to motivate them, how to drive them. A lot of people tend to ignore this group because they don't feel the need to motivate them. But I still think you do. I think it's actually as important as any other group. You don't have to pay as much attention, but you better be giving these people opportunities, because when they leave, it actually hurts. So I would just put that in everybody's, back of their mind. Like, if you have an all-star, he's like, I never have to bug him. I never have to bother him. And you've not given him or her more opportunity to grow and to improve. And like, we're all on the same page. Everybody leaves at some point. We hope it's for retirement, but everybody leaves. If you're not taking care of your best people, it sucks when they leave. So make sure you're focusing on them too. Talk about, we can talk about like the Dream Management book, which is an amazing book. It's a fictional book, so don't get too caught up into it before you realize that. But it's an amazing book that kind of gets you in the thought process. Make sure you're taking care of your top people just like you would anyone else. Don't leave them by themselves because you know you can.
Yep.
Make sure that top group is continuously learning, changing, and growing. When things feel stagnant for this group, they won't tell you initially, which is why it's so important to have reviews. And I would talk to them at least twice a year. And I certainly do that with Zach and Stephen and Barry and Diane and Lindsay. That top tier group that's completely 100% emotionally engaged, making sure they're being compensated when they want to be compensated, making sure they're being challenged, making sure that they're spending their time where they want to spend their time, where they're going to have the greatest impact. The way you keep from losing them is by keeping them engaged. And lastly, constantly be working on yourself. If you're not setting the example for them and continually learning and changing and growing yourself, that could be a reason why they move on. Like, meaning they've learned all that they can learn from you. I mean, you know what? Before we got on this podcast, we were talking about Zach, and Zach caught me during a workout the other day, and he's like, "Dude, what's your real reason for working out?" And I didn't have enough time to really process his question at the time, so I said, "Dude, I'm just working on a 6-pack. I want to be the only guy that I know that's 45 years old and has a 6-pack." Right? It was a stupid, lame reason to work out. But the real reason is that in every way possible, physically, emotionally, socially, spiritually, I want to continuously work on myself so that I can be an example to those who work with me. That's my intention. That's my goal. That's my objective. Constantly, I'm not dead. That means I'm still changing. I'm still learning. I'm still growing, and just doing everything I can to set a good example for my team.
Yeah. That's also your leadership style to a point. That's my leadership style too. Leading by example. That's not everyone's.
It's definitely
There's lots of different ways of motivating people and driving people, but if you're a passive owner, that's not that big a deal, right? But I would make the argument it always helps.
What's been found is I was reading like a whole bunch of studies on this recently. The most effective form of leadership is authentic leadership. And the fact that you speak that way and say that you believe these things and then actively go about pursuing them, like you have the physical proof of that, is authentic leadership in a nutshell. But that's a topic that people could dig into further. There's loads of different types of leadership, but apparently authentic leadership has just been proven to be the most effective. So yeah.
And just so everybody's aware, for $9.99, Brigham will send you a calendar with him, but nothing but Speedos showing up for that from here on out.
Yeah. We're in the middle. We're in.
It's BrighamInBikinis.com. It's really not. We should buy that URL.
I was just going to say, let me go check for that URL.
BrighamsInBikinis.com.
You might not like what you find there. I suggest you don't type that in.
Yeah.
It might not exist. It might already exist. Is it already existing?
You got to buy that domain.
Well, I'm just laughing what Brigham said.
You got to buy that domain.
Oh. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for your time. We're heading to the end here. Cool topic. Make sure you follow us. Make sure you like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Share this with your friends, family. Give us feedback. We do this for you guys. We don't make money on this. So giving positive feedback to us really helps drive us and keeps us motivated. So, Zach's showing in the Brigham and Speedo.
And my gosh, what a steal. What an absolute steal. For only $4.99, you can be the proud owner of BrighamInBikinis.com.
If any one of our listeners wanted to buy that URL and then hold it over Brigham's head, that would be amazing.
Oh my gosh. Oh, yes.
All right. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate you. Go change the world, guys.
Okay.
You can't buy it till you fulfill it, Brigham. We need to see the 6-pack first.
All right.
Thank you for listening to Lip Service for Contractors. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Make sure to leave us a review in the App Store and don't forget to share with your friends. Ideas are cheap. Implementation is what separates the winners from the watchers. Go out and implement these ideas. See you on the next episode of Lip Service for Contractors.